Welcome to the Scottish Rite Journal podcast, an audio presentation of the Scottish Rite Journal, brought to you by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. This week's article is A Place of Darkness by Keith Idell, 32nd degree, and comes from the March-April 2023 issue of the Scottish Rite Journal. If I say, "Surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the light shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb." Psalm 139, chapters 11 through 13. Editor's note: Ian Kirkpatrick presented thoughts on Why is the North Dark in the May-June 2022 Scottish Rite Journal. Here we read Keith Idell's thoughts on this fascinating topic. There is much to be learned from the Blue Lodge entered apprentice ritual, although a portion likely has been lost over the centuries. However, as with all esoteric material, the student must endeavor, with diligence, to discover the truth and light for himself from what remains and is presently available. In the first degree, we are taught that all the cardinal points are illuminated except for the north, even when the sun is at meridian height. The question then arises, what if the north were illuminated? Would there then be anything to be seen? Would there be something we could not see because we are too ignorant to see it, or, perhaps, because it is forbidden to be seen? Light and darkness in the Old Testament do not necessarily have the same meaning or connotation now as they did to the ancient writers. When we speak of darkness in the present day, we tend to think, per our Western religion and culture, of places where evil is free to operate and where monsters reside. Yet darkness in the past often was seen as generative, as in the book of Genesis, or as in the cases of pregnancy or the growing of seeds. Thus, there can be a gestational warmth in the darkness. In darkness, the powers of creation may be preparing to manifest themselves. Similarly, there is also the cycle of regeneration, as in the passing of winter to spring, from night to day, or in the regeneration and transformation of the dark night of the soul, as the 16th century Spanish mystic poet San Juan de la Cruz termed it. Again, the best fertile soil is black in color, and the blacker it is, the more suited it is for agriculture. What then is in this darkness of the north? The answer is that the Almighty is in the darkness in the north. Yet one could say it cannot be because all light comes from God, for God is light. 1 John chapter 1 verse 5. It should be remembered that, in the Old Testament, God always works in the darkness. In 1 Kings chapter 8 verses 10 through 12, we read, "And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, that the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud. For the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord. Then spake Solomon, the Lord said that he would dwell in the thick darkness." In Exodus chapter 20, verse 21, we read, "And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was." Yet why is this darkness in the north? The Old Testament gives clues that God resided in the north. One example is found in Leviticus chapter 1 verses 10 through 11. This chapter talks about the proper procedures of sacrifice. For a guilt offering only, procedure specifies, and if his offering be of the flocks, namely, of the sheep or of the goats, for a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring it a male without blemish, and he shall kill it on the side of the altar northward before the Lord. And the priests, Aaron's sons, shall sprinkle his blood round about upon the altar. Indeed, the Old Testament implies that salvation comes only from the north. In Psalm chapter 75 verse 6, we read, "For promotion, salvation, cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. The only alternative that remains is from the north." In the book of Job, chapter 37, verses 21 through 22, the divine appears in all of his glory, saying, "And now men see not the bright light which is in the clouds, but the wind passeth, and cleanseth them. Fair weather cometh out of the north. With God is terrible majesty." In antiquity, the divine often resided on the highest places on earth, such as mountains or at the center of the world. The north appears in both settings. In the Old Testament, the divine's residence is often on a mountain, and we see the psalmist, traditionally understood to be King David, connect this with the north when he writes, in Psalms chapter 48, verses 1 through 2, "Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountains of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great King." More broadly, north can represent the center of the world. Among religious scholars, this central point is known as the axis mundi, or the axis of the world, classically described by religious scholar Marcia Iliad, who writes in Patterns in Comparative Religion. The temple or sacred city, in turn, as the place through which the axis mundi passes, is held to be a point of junction between heaven, earth, and hell. Page 375. This axis may be represented as a spear, column, omphalos, the cosmic tree, or the cosmic mountain, or as the North Pole, beneath the pole star, in the empty place. The earth spins on this axis with the stars circling around it, and thus it embodies the center of the earth. In conclusion, with God properly placed in the north, the lodge is once again full. The players are in attendance, and the ritual is properly performed under the watchful care of the Supreme Architect of the universe. Like and share this article, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you wish to comment, please leave one, and as a reminder, hit the notifications bell. Any accompanying photographs or citations for this article can be found in the corresponding print edition. The Scottish Rite Journal is published by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. Mark Dreisenstock, 32nd degree, KCCH, Managing Editor. I'm your host, Matt Bowers.